pick me up and hug, I believe, is the other one.
Okay, good, good. So, let's do Pinkie Paws.
Okay.
And you probably need to back up enough that you can see hands.
Okay.
So I just tend to like to start like this. It helps me get connected with myself. But you can start wherever you are. And sometimes with this exercise, I give people background, and sometimes I just launch right into it. So if I'm launching right into it, it looks like, let's just do a mirroring exercise and see how it feels. So I'm gonna do some hand movements and breathe with them. And I invite you to mirror the movements and breathe at my rhythm if you can. If it doesn't work for you, it's okay not to.
Okay.
And you can do it any way that works for you. It's not important to be a perfect mirror.
Sorry, let me turn down my video. I do apologize, not my video, my phone.
Do you know how to turn off notifications?
I do. They are off.
That's great.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
So what was I just saying? You can, it's important that you feel comfortable. So if you need to adjust the exercise to work for you, that's fine. You can do it smaller than I do it. You can, it is important. I'm probably going to cut this up and video it. You can do it smaller than I do it. You can just do anything that mirrors the rhythm. The rhythm is the most important thing for feeling connected.
Okay.
So let's just start with exercise. And it involves leading with your pinkies. That's about it.
Ah.
So I'm breathing in as I go out. And when you're leader, you can have your eyes open or closed. As follower, you want to keep your eyes open so you can track. When the leader opens their eyes, it's nice to offer them a smile if it's authentic. And even as leader, even as mirror, track your own comfort. It's really easy getting so caught up in doing a good job of mirroring that you forget to feel what it's like to stay with yourself.
And when you say track your own comfort, what does that mean precisely?
It means stay connected with your own self, your own breath, your own seat on the chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next piece is the leader usually shares first, and you just answer the question, what did you notice? So what did I notice? I got a little distracted teaching, and maybe I wasn't quite as present with myself as I would have been if I'd been just doing it, and that's okay. And I noticed that I feel expanded, that I went from sort of nose vision, nasal vision, they call it, very focused in on what are we doing, and to, oh yeah, right, this expanded experience of spaciousness. And I noticed that you were really paying attention, and that felt good. What'd you notice?
I love that you pointed that out, because I was doing the same thing until you reminded me to feel into my body. I forget the specific phrase that you used, track myself, my own feeling. I was very much trying to follow and stay focused and do what you were doing. Once you gave me permission, reminder to track myself, it became more apparent that I can relax my shoulders. I can relax my hips. Instead of being forward, I can allow them to go under and just relax into what I'm doing. And similar to you, lifting up my arms overhead, that felt really good. We were doing a lot of this, and then finally opening up feels really nice. That felt nice, to expand, to reach, to take up space.
So would you like to lead?
Yes, Pinkie Paws again.
Yep.
All right. It feels complete.
And what'd you notice?
I noticed that closing my eyes, I fell deeper into my body, and I wasn't so distracted by what I was seeing. That is a big thing I noticed. In addition, it felt good watching you move with me and feeling like we were in somewhat unison together. Made me feel connected as we're one. Yeah. And what did you feel?
I got lots more flow in my body, especially after you did this. And when you went way out to the side, it really opened up my heart area even more. I like that. And there was a way it was just simple to follow you and have anything else to worry about. I think it's kind of normal when people first do one of these exercises, they try and do it right and be a good mirror. But then after you've done it a couple of times, it's like, oh, life is simple. All I got to do is mirror somebody else. I think a young part of us that likes that, or at least that's what it felt like to me. Well, the other thing to say about this exercise is that there's a whole discipline called bodynamics, which maps what muscles come online at what developmental stage for what purpose. And it turns out these pinky muscles come online in the first weeks of life when the infant is nursing and bringing the milk down milk ducts in the breast. And similar to the puppy or kitten that does this, It's really about taking and nurturing. So in doing this exercise, sometimes I don't say anything about it. I'll just say, you know, some a client will get on Zoom and say, oh, you know, I never feel connected. I've been, you know, I'm lonely and I hate this COVID stuff. I'll say, well, just try and exercise. Do this with me. And I'll have them, you know, stretch out their pinkies and draw them back in. And they'll tend to say, like you did, that they feel more connected.
Yeah. Yeah, it does that when you're following in unison.
Yes.
Right? That makes you feel like you're a part of it. What it is, whatever it might be.
Both the mirroring and the specific muscles contribute to creating a little more connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say there's something to be said about when you're doing any kind of emotional work to also feel into your body and to regulate yourself, whether you're doing a Zoom call, holding space, or you're doing one of these events around 36 questions to fall in love, sharing and giving information, to also stand up and allow your body to feel and regulate that energy.
And of course, you can do this standing as well.
Yes, yeah.
You could probably even do it lying down, but it's a little hard to get the camera to work. But, you know, if somebody can't, if they're bedridden and they really can't sit up, you know, if they can get the laptop or something, the camera high enough, you can do it lying down.
I'll have to try that.
Just for options. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's sort of part of the practice to thank your partner. So, so I'm going to do pick me up and hug.
Yes.
Okay. So let's do pick me up and hug. And this is simple and I'm just going to cough if I don't get water.
That's fine.
Should have got some before, but I forgot.
There we go. Now with this one, we go down, so I'll probably need to show more of my torso, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you tend to have to sit back a little so that you do show more. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but just, yeah, so you're comfortable. And you have to speak a little louder because we're further from the microphone.
Okay, I feel like I'm really good at projecting my voice.
Great. So, we're going to do pick me up and hug. And you can do this with a leader and a mirror, or you can just do it together, kind of as a partner exercise. So
Can we try it both ways?
Sure.
As a partner exercise and a leader in a mirror, for example?
Sure. So let's do it first as a leader and mirror, because that's the easier way to teach it. So I will ask you to mirror and I'll lead. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
It's just reaching out and then taking you in and grabbing these muscles. So you kind of feel like somebody's grabbing you and also you got something to hold on to. And I like to rock a little bit. I do it 2 or 3 times. Hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what did I notice? I just felt more connection. Maybe I just dropped into feeling more alive in my back body. Like I could feel my seat and that sense of my sacrum underneath me. And it's like, I guess I was reaching from my sacrum. You know, I find that first picking up and just really reaching out for somebody and then bringing you back, it settles me.
You said it settles you?
Yeah, it makes me feel like everything's okay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm too much alone. I don't feel settled. I feel like, no, it's not quite right. This was,
Right.
that feeling went away. I got just sort of warm and expansive.
What I felt loved. I felt as I embraced myself, receiving that touch, that hug, feelings of safety came up for me. Security, comfort, which I find really interesting. Even though I lead clients in self-soothing touch, perhaps because I am the leader in the sessions that I don't often feel it. And as we talked before, worried about being the leader and making sure the person's following or whatnot. Yeah.
You know, as you were just showing me, I just had to do it some more.
Feel it for you.
While you're doing that, I was like, no, I want it too. Would you like to lead?
Yes. Okay. Now, I can't remember. Does it matter if I put my arms down immediately after hugging?
However it works for you.
However it works. Wonderful. I do so much yoga, everything has to be in motion and movement. Thank you.
What you notice?
What came up, what I noticed was as I was reaching out for you, I could almost envision my hands slipping right under your arms and around you and just holding you close. It was a line of vision that just, that's what I saw. Watching you again follow along mirror was really nice. It made me feel connected as we're doing it in unison. So those same feelings of unison action, of movement, just like Pinkie Paw. What about you?
There are a couple of times in this that I felt us reaching for each other. I mean, we don't even know each other. There was something real about it. It was,
yes.
The Zoom became the reminder that we're two people being together, as opposed to Zoom is all there is.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Two people being together, even though we're virtual, is that what you're referring?
Like, okay, Zoom is, the visual is here, and it's assuring me that we really are connected. But the sense of embodied connection is more important than the Zoom.
Yes.
It's like
yes, absolutely.
That we're two people reaching for each other.
Do you think there's some acknowledgement within each other, similar to the effects people get from eye gazing, acknowledging that there's someone acknowledging you being present, not just you being aware of yourself?
I think reflection is a really important part of co-regulation. And yes, the mirroring and in both action and eye contact is important reflection. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's do the partner practice.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Would you like to do the partner practice?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it's just the same thing, except we do it together and watch each other.
We do it together and watch each other in our own way, so there is not the mirroring aspect.
You do it however it works for you both. You can mirror. I'm not necessarily waiting for you, but I could. If you wanted to do this and I wanted to do that, that would be okay.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So
it's really what feels right for you.
Yeah.
If I want to follow you and mirror, I can. However, I don't have to.
And the same for me.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is really a beautiful exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lift this up.
What'd you notice?
I noticed how badly I want to hug from you. That's that's really what I noticed. That I'd like you to reach right through Zoom and kind of cradle me here. In this moment, I enjoyed following you more and kind of knowing, but I think that's my own ideas of wanting to do something right and kind of that bit of aspect, not letting go. Something else that holding you close and dear like this after we came in and just was very much regulating in how I was feeling, holding close to my chest, my heart. Those are some things. Yeah. How about yourself?
I don't know if I can remember everything. There's a whole bunch of little things that happened. One was just this, like, all of me can be with you. I don't have to, it just felt safe and like you had room for me. Like you meant it when you wanted me. And then there was another feeling that brought just a little prick of tears of, oh, I'm so glad you exist. You know, just like a little voice coming in.
Yes.
Some part of me just, and then yeah, that sense of co-regulation, just, I felt regulated. When I talk about co-regulation, I say, I don't regulate you. I regulate myself with you. And in being with you, I got a lot more regulated. That's not self-regulation, that's regulating with you. That's co-regulation for me.
When we're moving together and feeling it together at the same time.
And I wasn't too worried about who was leading or who was following. There was this rich and vulnerable spot of, well, does she want to do it again? Does she want that connection? You know, do you? And feeling like, yes, you do. Or maybe it was after your hands moved and you went right with me. I think it was after we did it once, like, are we going to keep going?
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I wasn't sure. My adult self knew we were going to do more than one because I was going to make sure we did. But some little kid part was like, oh yeah, she's really in it with me. This feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can recognize that too. I can see that, I guess, the unsurety, unsure of what was going to be next, or if I was supposed to keep going, or if you were going to keep going, wanting to. Yeah.
And of course, when you get together with somebody and just do a couple of exercises, you know, once a week, or, you know, a friend that you do it with often, the negotiation about how much and will it be okay falls away and it gets much simpler. But there's an aliveness in the, oh, here's this complete stranger who really wants to connect with me. That's great.
Right.
And it isn't just like, well, I'm teaching you the exercise. You know, yes, the visual is there, but for me, there's a real level of connection that happens that when I'm doing some Zoom calls, it's like after a while, oh God, it's enough already. But right now, I'm not feeling like enough Zoom, I want to get off. I'm happy to have Zoom as the reminder of a sense of connection that I feel with you.
Yeah, yeah. The sharing in this. In your experience, would you say that there is maybe a prime amount of movement or one of these sessions that you can do with someone, whether it's complete strangers or, like you just mentioned, with a friend?
Okay, so indications and counterindications is what you're asking about.
Mm.
And who do you work with? What kind of population?
I primarily work with men who are lonely, depressed, PTSD, anxious.
Okay. So, of course, there's the tricky place of, and in person or online?
Both.
Mm-hmm. So doing something like pick me up and hug in person with a lonely man is going to be tricky.
Mm.
And they, so, you know, usually they don't have a woman in their life, and assuming they're heterosexual, which they may or may not be. But if they are, then reaching for you in this vulnerable way when they aren't going to get you at a certain level
Mm-hmm.
can bring up a lot more than you might want to force them to deal with. So Pinkie Paws is a little safer than pick me up and hug in person.
I see.
So indications, if somebody doesn't want to do it, makes them uncomfortable, it's worth talking about why. And if they're not good at talking about why, I wouldn't go there. So the counterindications, there are 2 or 3 things. One big important one is for people with developmental trauma, particularly neglect, which is very common with people with PTSD. If you have good relationships, you tend to recover from trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, so now I'm starting to talk trauma. And that's sort of beyond what I was going to do, but I like talking about it, so I'll take a little bit more time.
Thank you.
What I say to people when they're ready to hear it is, whenever there's trauma, the initial trauma may or may not be relational. Could have been an earthquake, could have been war. You know, it's not about a personal relationship. Or it could have been, you know, spousal rape, which is very personal, relational. But whether the first trauma is relational or not, if you have PTSD, it means 6 months later, nobody knew how to help you with it. That's failure of the tribe. That's relational.
Okay.
So in that sense, PTSD is always relational. This is my way of thinking about it. I didn't get this from anybody else. I don't know if everybody else agrees with me, but it just seems like. So, you know, we do know how to help each other recover from even really difficult trauma. But many of us didn't get enough help repairing from even small things with dysregulated parents, that when things are hard, we don't reach for help because we don't expect it. So when somebody has particularly heavy early developmental trauma, and there's almost always a part of them that's angry about it underneath the part that's ashamed and hopeless.
Right.
And so if you show up and are really there for somebody in a very embodied way when they didn't get what they needed for decades, they're going to be mad at you because you're not enough. Like all of a sudden you're showing them what they needed and didn't get. The less stable they are, the worse an idea that is. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing this for about 5 years, the Platonic Touch, and it's become, you know, touch is just the key that unlocks the trust the potential for vulnerability. And then it becomes the connection part, the human connection, that really kind of grows and where they get the majority of the healing from. But I see this as being a wonderful tool to add to a toolbox of strategies and exercises to help the clients.
Yeah. The next issue, counterindication, or at least consideration, is for people who, highly sensitive people who spend a lot of time in dissociation, and that's a lot of people who come into my practice. They need to access their most vulnerable, exiled, injured parts, but they have a lot of protection around them. And one of the forms of protection is dissociation. And if you push through the dissociation without making peace with the protectors, you're going to trigger addictive behavior.
Wow, there is so much right there. You're going to trigger addictive behavior.
Yeah. Because these protector parts have been in place often for decades, since they were little. And if they come into their bodies, if dissociation is what they picked as an infant or a small child, then coming into their bodies means wanting things that they weren't allowed, having wants and needs that they were not allowed to express. And so all of a sudden, knowing that they want something and they can't get it.
Right.
And the part of them that wants it is got a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old brain and doesn't know how to, it's going to trigger whatever addictive behaviors came next to manage intense feelings. So embodiment is a really important healing tool, but getting to it too fast, particularly when there's early developmental trauma, can rupture the relationship with you and can send them into shame and hopelessness and addiction.
Is this something that you have experienced as far as clients? I mean, do you have a limit as to how many times you'll see a client to where they, when you notice they may be becoming addicted to the sessions that you're holding for them?
Oh, I don't worry about them. My job is to get them to find connection with self. But if they have no wiring for taking in healthy reflection that they are good, then then they don't want to connect with themselves because they feel so bad about themselves.
I see.
I don't tend to worry about their getting addicted to our sessions, although that's men who just want a woman to make them feel better will do that. So that's a consideration. I'm more worried that, oh my gosh, I've just discovered this young part who really needed a mother. And my mother wasn't there when I was little. She was sadistic. And so I'm feeling this intense young need for connection, and I can't stand it. So I'm going to do drugs, overeat, cut myself. You know, it's all that kind of behavior that I'm more worried about.
I see.
when I say addiction. There's a third counterindication, and I'm not thinking of it right now. Where do I have that written up? That is in my class notes. Hang on a sec. Hang on, I'm getting there.
Take your time.
I think it's at the end of week 1. Counterindications. Oh, simple. So the protector parts need to be invited forward and engaged with, the parts that aren't too sure this is a good idea. Otherwise, they can trigger addictions. Causing shame. Anything that causes shame makes things worse.
Yes.
So when people, if you can co-regulate the shame, then it's really good to contact it. But if they have to deal with it by themselves, it's bad. Okay. So if I don't want to tell you that, I don't know, it could be cultural, it could be physical, it could be a lot of different things. My most problematic, so let's see, let me give 2 or 3 examples of causing shame. Maybe I think I'm fat and I don't want you looking at my body. So even starting this, I'm going to move and you're going to be looking at me. Or I was always told I'm clumsy, so that's just sort of basic physical stuff. Or I have an injury, I've lost an arm, I can only do it with one arm. And I don't know, and I think you're going to be judging me or you're not going to like me, but I can't say anything about it. And, if we can talk about the shame and I can say, hey, imagine you have one arm. If I could say, I don't know how it might be for you to reach out when you only have one arm, but I'm sure it's an issue and let's just look at it, see how it feels. Would that be okay with you? Then maybe they can go there, maybe they can't. But it's way better than let's just do the exercise and they're doing it with one arm and you're not saying anything. That's bound to be dicey.
It's better to say something, yeah.
Yeah. So physical shame. Another is cultural stuff. For a man in some cultures to reach for a woman who's not going to reach back would be either he would never do it because it's insulting, or just there's certain things you do and don't do, and different cultures are different. So there's the cultural piece. So the cultural, but by far and away the biggest one that I run into that causes shame and that is a problem is I work with a lot of people who are quite sensitive, empathic folk. And when people have been sensitized by PTSD over a long period of time, they get very hypervigilant and very oversensitive, even if they weren't like that as children. And they're always trying to pretend that they're more okay than they are.
Yes.
So if they're pretending they can do this exercise when part of them is screaming, this makes me uncomfortable, don't do it.
And so the best way to find that out is by asking them point blank. There's a lot of discussion, as you probably recognize in sessions, of where boundaries are, gaining consent to do this and what makes them comfortable. And sometimes, don't you feel like you have to hope for the best by creating that space for them to speak up if they are not comfortable?
Yeah, they won't. They don't even know they're not comfortable. They don't even let themselves know they're not comfortable. They're so
Wow.
hell-bent on pretending they're okay, they don't let that body up circuitry through
Right.
the
I call
conscious.
that pushing through. They just push through and do what they got to do to get to the next step.
Right.
Mm.
So the way I deal with that is I'm going to suggest a physical, I'm pretending this is how I might talk to a client. I'm going to suggest a physical exercise, and I'm not at all sure you're going to be comfortable with it. So, and it's really okay with me if you're not. And I'd love to have you feel safe enough and connected with yourself enough to be able to tell the absolute truth about it. So really take your time and feel into it. And I could show you what I'm going to suggest, or I could just describe it. You know, how would you like me to start? And if they say, show me, I'm going to turn a little bit to the side, and I'm going to say, this exercise is called Pinkie Paws, because I would start with that, not pick me up and hug if it's somebody that fragile. And so we would do this looking at each other, mirroring. And when you imagine that, how does it feel to you? So that would be a way to just ask. You know, or I could say, there's an exercise that involves, yeah, it's harder to talk about it. I would probably go ahead and, but not look at them while I'm doing it.
That makes a lot of sense. That takes a lot of pressure off, a lot of any shame that starts building up inside of them. They can just watch you do, show them what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
So when you think about doing that with me, what comes up? And I might even invite parts, like, is there a part that wants to and a part that doesn't?
Mm.
You know, and go really slow and let them feel their way into it and not push through. But once you've had them speak for the part that does and the part that doesn't, then pushing through is less of a hazard. Because they might try to push through, but at least they've acknowledged the part that doesn't. And so when you've done it, and how was that for the part that didn't want to do it? You ask at the end.
Yeah.
Because that's integrative. If you just start diving in, it's kind of like being led around by your genitals. You get something that part of you needs, but the other part is horrified.
Right. That makes so much sense. No. Mm. Well, Beth, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is wonderful.
And you'd certainly be welcome in a practitioner's class or group if you found one that you wanted to. You know, the website says get permission from me. Mm-hmm. But this is enough of an interview. I get who you are, and you'd be fine in those classes.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Would it be okay if you share a copy of this video with me? Because I believe it, and if it's not recording on your computer, it might be recording on mine. And then, of course, I'll share a link with you to download if it is.
Okay, I'm going to